call the workshop meeting for the town of Chincoteague to order. If we could please stand for the invocation and pledge allegiance. Jay, would you do the honor?
Thank you for this day, Lord. We thank you for your blessings, Lord. We thank you for this island, Lord, that we're so fortunate to possess, Lord. And Lord, we just ask a special blessing upon those that are suffering in the Ukraine, Lord. Just be with that country in a mighty way, Lord. And Lord, we just ask for deliverance for that the people of that country who are going through such turmoil and resistance at this time, Lord. Lord, we just ask a blessing upon this meeting tonight, Lord, our council, Lord. Let's make the decisions that are in accordance with your will and your direction. Continue to go with us, guide us, and direct us. First, in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to town meeting. Happy St. Patrick's Day. First up on the agenda is for public comment, and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Talbert for rules.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Rules for public comment will be: all attendees wishing to speak shall sign up on the provided roster. Speakers must preface all comments by stating their name and 911 address. Comments shall be limited to 4 minutes per speaker. A speaker cannot reserve or transfer time to another speaker. Speakers must not use profanity, threatening language, or otherwise be abusive of council members or staff. Speakers shall not address specific personnel matters which involve individual employees in a public meeting. Members of the council will not answer questions directly or engage with speakers, and specific questions shall be directed to the mayor, who shall at his discretion solicit a response from the appropriate staff member.
All righty. First on the list is Mr. Landsberger.
Yes, sir.
David Landsberger, 5475 Warren Street, Chincoteague, Virginia. I'd like to read a letter that I think you're all going to be emailed if you haven't seen it already. I'd like to put it in the record and then have you hopefully, there you go, consider it for your next meeting. Dear Mayor and Council, Eastern Shore Coalition Against Domestic Violence, ESCODIV, is formally requesting $25,000 in ARPA funds from the town of Chincoteague. These funds would be used towards the ESCODIV's capital campaign, which was undertaken to fund the remediation of the former G.F. Horn Assisted Living Facility in Onancock, and that's the picture of the facility there that we've bought. This 3-building facility on 5 acres will be the future home of ESCODIV's emergency shelter advocacy and administrative offices and communication outreach and education space. This new facility will be called Hope Harbor. The shelter space will have a practical capacity of 30, as opposed to the former shelter, which could house 16 and often had a realistic capacity of 12 to 13. The new space will also allow ESCODIV to expand its services. Hope Harbor and the services ESCODIV provides are critical for Chincoteague, Accomack County, and the entire Eastern Shore, because we are the only organization on the Eastern Shore that survivors of domestic abuse and sexual assault can turn to when they need help. The total budget for the project is $1.7 million, roughly half of which has already been donated or pledged, including $100,000 from the town of Onancock. I bought the building and donated it to the town, which is about a quarter of the budget. Donated it to ESCODIV, which is about a quarter of the budget. Work began on the emergency shelter last fall, and the targeted completion date is June 30th. Once the shelter is open, work will begin on the administrative and advocacy office. The hope is that the office building will be open next winter, with the 3rd building being remediated as funds allow. ESCODIV is requesting ARPA funds from the town of Chincoteague and many other incorporated towns on the Eastern Shore because there are specific provisions in ARPA that allow for funds to be used to address the issue of domestic violence. The Department of Treasury ARPA guidelines specifically addresses the concerns the pandemic created for individuals impacted by domestic violence, stating, stay-at-home orders and other pandemic responses may have also reduced the ability of individuals affected by domestic violence to access services. The guidelines also list services to address homelessness, such as supportive housing, and to improve access to stable, affordable housing amongst unhoused individuals. Hope Harbor specifically addresses the need of individuals impacted by violence and experiencing homelessness for all of Accomack County. Hope Harbor and the services Escadiv provides are critical for Chincoteague, Accomack, and the entire Eastern Shore because we are the only organization on the Eastern Shore that survivors of domestic abuse and sexual assault can turn to when they need help. In addition to an emergency shelter, Escadiv also provides a 24-hour hotline, individual counseling, hospital and courtroom accompaniment, legal advocacy, safety planning, rape crisis services, and services to children who have experienced domestic violence. Annually, Escadiv answers 250 hotline calls, shelters 150 people, and provides services to roughly 250 people. Half of those we serve are children. Without our services, all these people would have nowhere to turn to when they need help fleeing from violence. We hope you will consider investing in this critical regional project so the Eastern Shore can be safer for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Medford. Ms. Helms?
Sorry, I'm Kat Helms. My legal name's Catherine Nicole Helms, 6471 Conant Lane. I had written a letter on, you may have seen it already. I'm RN. We've only been here since September, but I'm used to this kind of living. I had to retire early and had to fight cancer. So I have good friends in the medical field, and the importance of our health, our gut health, is so high and so important that it really frightens me about closing down White Nest or White Raven's Nest. They have such a variety. It's farm to table. It's the health of our community that's going to lose out if there's no way to get around this gray water issue. I don't know what else to say. Just thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Talbot?
Yes, sir. I have an email that was sent in and with a request to be read into the record tonight. To the Town Council members, Mayor, and other members of tonight's meeting, I would like to address my concerns to the Council about the possibility of losing a wonderful business like White Raven's Nest to our town. I am the originator of the Chincoteague restaurant list that gets published weekly on most of the Facebook pages that are associated with the town, and as I go through this list, I can honestly tell you that there is no other business on this island that provides the services that White Raven's Nest provides our town. Yes, there are other businesses that sell produce, but none sell the quality that White Ravens provides or the operating hours that they offer. They open in mid-February. They open in mid-February and close on Christmas Eve. In the peak of the season, they are open 7 days a week and have the largest selection of vegetables, fresh farm-raised meats, and seafood in the area. If you are looking for something they don't usually carry, all you need to do is ask them, and they will get it for you. I have stood in their business and watched locals and visitors stand in awe with their selections of everything that they carry. Having them denied this gray water pump and haul permit will be detrimental to our town and to their livelihood. They offer hams at Easter, Christmas, turkeys for Thanksgiving and Christmas. I truly hope the town can come to some type of agreement for Berkey Landon and Kim White Landon so that they may reopen their business and continue providing locals and visitors with the best of everything their amazing farmers market provides. Thank you for your time this evening. Respectfully submitted, Deanna M. Breadbenter, 7158 Bunning Road, Chincoteague.
All righty, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All righty, we've got to do a little bit of house cleaning. Last time we met, we omitted a committee, so I'm going to turn it over to Councilwoman Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll take this off. I'm used to wearing it on the bus. We have to. It's a part of me. this was February the 1st, we had our Public Works meeting. So you all, I didn't realize, Mr. Tarver said you all had it on that thing last week. Well, you all know what I think about that. But anyway, I had a piece of paper and I didn't want to bring it up because I was afraid you all didn't have a chance to look at it. So a lot of in here has been already done. Does anybody have any questions on it?
I don't think so. We're supposed to address it again tonight.
Well, really, I think
For
what
the
you're belong to do
proposal.
is more or less approve it.
Right.
So if it's any questions, I'll try to answer you.
Anyone? We're all good? All right.
I make a motion to approve the proclamation.
Well, we don't have to, that's later on anyway.
Good enough.
It's just a committee report.
But
That
can
comes
we
later.
get a motion on this?
Well, we've got down,
We'll do it later. if you want.
we can do it later when, down on the, further on the agenda, it's number 7 on the agenda.
Not what I have.
No, I don't have
I
either.
got, mine's different, yours.
Yeah.
The agenda hasn't changed, Mr. Mayor. The committee report was omitted at the last meeting, so all we're
Right.
doing is asking for approval of
Yeah.
the minutes for this.
Okay, I
Just
got you.
so it goes into the minutes.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Gene. I didn't follow you. All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
So move.
Motion and a second. All those wishing to add the Public Works Committee meeting minutes to our last meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Thank y'all. Sorry for the
Thank you.
confusion.
See, I'm gonna skip over that.
Mr. Mayor, we skipped a line on the proclamation for cleanup week.
Am I looking at the right thing?
You sure you don't want my printed copy?
I got a spare
I'm
one.
looking at the right thing.
I got a spare one here. I got a spare one.
No,
Don't do it.
I got a spare
It's
one.
on, it's
I
on,
got
the-
witness. I'm looking at
it's on, the- it's on the screen.
Don't take a printed copy, don't do it.
Why am I different? Shoot. Computers. All right.
It is.
That's 2. All right.
Right date.
Yeah. 2022.
Yeah, mine's different as well.
I can share one.
Mike, something's going on.
We will straighten that out. I do apologize, but we've,
Who knows? Anyhow. All right, I'll read the proclamation. Whereas throughout our community, there are many cemeteries and family burial grounds. And whereas over the years, many of the loved ones of those buried in those cemeteries have moved away or are no longer able to tend to the cemeteries, and whereas many organizations and individuals throughout our community have volunteered to assist in the cleanup of those sites and common areas within these cemeteries, and whereas these organizations and individuals need assistance from all citizens to accomplish their cleanup goals to beautify and preserve our family burial grounds, now therefore I, Mayor John A. Leonard, do hereby proclaim the week of April 4th through April 10th as Cemetery Cleanup Week within the town of Chincoteague, and call upon our citizens to volunteer to organize and assist in the cleanup of our island cemeteries. Dated this the 17th day of March 2022. Thank you, sir. All right, now I gotta put my back. Now I'll read this. All right. Now, moving on to Mr. Talbot to the budget.
yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I do apologize. This is the 3rd budget since we published the agenda that has been associated with this agenda. It's sort of a fluid situation. And I'm sure you've all read the memo. The memo has not changed. We did in the highlights for this budget, and this budget, I will stress, is balanced in all funds and in total. In order to balance the total budget and the general fund, we were conservative on our original estimates for revenues for meals and transient occupancy tax. I increased both of those $100,000. And I still feel we are slightly conservative, but to the point where I don't really want to touch those revenues again. We're transferring reserves, harbor reserves to the general fund to complete, we're transferring from harbor reserves $89,097 to complete funding for the Memorial Park boat ramp. And we reevaluated our water fund revenues from $1.1 million down to $9 million at seems to be the trend going on right now. I think that was overdone just a little bit when we originally estimated it. Also, due to the current situation, took all lines in this budget that contained any kind of fuel, propane, fuel oil, gasoline, diesel, and increased them by 50%. That seems to be the way we're headed. I incorporated ARPA projects, the SCBA compressor that the fire department wants, the match for the new ambulance, which is coming in next year, and also the Cropper Street Waterline project that was approved by the ARPA committee. All of those are in here. I also have a little bit of money in there for any nonprofits that the ARPA committee may award money to. And we are continuing to fund our water reserves this year. Now moving directly into the budget, I'll hit the highlighted lines just to tell you the changes that have been made from the last one. And I'm going to, excuse me 1 second here, pull up a different one so that we can take a look. This way we can see the notes that are attached to it. First, into revenues, as I said, the delinquent tax and penalty, interest penalty, I increased that by $807. That was some of these changed very minute amounts just so that we could balance the funds. I really don't think the changes are significant. As I said, meals tax we did increase by $100,000, and transit and occupancy tax we increased by $100,000, and that was purely to balance the general fund. I still think we're slightly conservative on those two taxes from what I've seen this year so far. Again, fines, that number I still think we're conservative, but we increased that $2,850 again to help balance that fund. Moving on down, Curtis Merritt Harbor. This particular line, transfer from the general fund, is to cover the local match for both the VPA grant at 25% and the boating infrastructure grant, which we received from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife this year. And that is specifically to make improvements to the boating facilities, Robert Reed Park. Next line, to transfer from the long-term replacement to Union Bank, $89,097. That's to replace any surplus funds from FY22. Trolley grants, DRPT came back, that's the Department of Rails and Public Transportation, who we received funding from for the trolley, came back and offered us, even though we had already submitted the grant, came back and offered us an opportunity to increase our fuel lines, which I accepted. So we went a little bit more than 50% with DRPT. That's their money, not ours, to increase the fuel for the trolley for this summer. Down to the water line. As I said, we reevaluated revenues for the water line and decreased them from $1.1 to $950,000. I also removed the general fund transfer due to the excess revenues that we had in our expense, or the excess revenues that we showed. I decreased or removed the transfer from the water reserve. We were going to transfer funds from our water reserve to cover some of our capital projects in the water fund, and since we looked like we were funded adequately with our revenues, I removed that transfer, so we won't be taking money out of reserves to do capital projects in the water this year. As you all know, and one of the reasons the budget changed this week is I neglected to put the 2.81% increase in VRS into the budget that was posted. We've now done that. That's costing the town this year, just for your knowledge, and our total payroll about $98,000 because the VRS increased. That's overall for the entire payroll amount. So each line you see under salary and benefits under retirement is color-coded yellow to indicate the increase. Again, gasoline, we increased all gasoline and all fuel lines of the budget by 50%. Heating oil. ARPA projects, again, SCBA compressor, the ambulance is in there, and there's a little bit of money for any nonprofits that the ARPA committee sees fit to fund. There's a 25% match for the harbor. We reviewed that. That's the VPA and the BIG grant. I did, in order to, once I realized that we had not accounted for the VRS increase, I did go back. I did not want to increase revenues anymore. I feel like we're as close as we need to be to that, the edge of that ledge. So I went back and reduced some expenditures. One of the expenditures that I reduced was property acquisition reserve, and we had committed, or I had budgeted $50,000 for that this year. I removed that to help balance that fund. Also, I had budgeted a little bit of money to do some renovations in this room, which I reduced from $20,000 down to $9,000, a little over $9,000. Again, to help budget that or balance that fund. And please stop me if you have questions along the lines here. We're going to go through each the changes in each department. And EMS, again, retirement number is increased. That's why that's highlighted. The fire department donation is basically fuel, and that's why that number increased. Thank you to Brian for pointing that out. Moving on, public works, again, retirement, fuel lines increased, LP gas, and we had some, I did have some money in there for the interior of the gym at the Donald J. Amaron Center. I did reduce that, again, to help balance that fund. Mosquito control, insurance increased slightly. We did increase fuel line, the fuel for the trucks, and our contract sprayer, our aerial sprayer, increased its price from $1.30 per acre to $1.50 per acre this year. And just so you'll know, we have not, from what I've seen, budgeted 6 springs, but we've been budgeting 4 springs per year. And we've been staying within budget with that. So, again, I budgeted 4 springs for FY23.
Hopefully it'll be dry this summer.
We hope. Under roads, again, the usual retirement increase. Police, and the former budget, I thought I had not included this, but it was. The former budget that I gave you did include the 2 new officers, but the retirement amount did increase as all the other departments. The gasoline for police increased. I had inadvertently not included money for the equipping the 2 officers. I just included their salaries. So what I did is I reduced, there was $12,000 in the budget as an expenditure for a new Stancil recorder that is in there year to year in case that piece of equipment goes down. I removed that $12,000 and put that into an equipment line to equip the 2 new officers, which should not, that change should not affect anything unless the Stancil recorder decides all of a sudden to break. And we'll deal with that at the time if it does. Dispatch, again, the only thing affected there was the increase in retirement. Underwater, retirement, gas and diesel. At the current time, I have transfer from our water department 2 reserves of $171,500. That is currently what we have budgeted. Now, of course, depending on what our water revenues actually are, that number may decrease. We did have $30,000 budgeted to replace a couple of the lift pumps that lift water to the water tower, along with variable frequency drives, which help to control those pumps. I reduced it from $30,000 down to $22,269. We still should be able to buy the pumps that we want, hopefully. But again, that was purely to balance that fund. that reduction. Looking at the harbor, again, the retirement line, I reduced the infrastructure and repairs line to balance the fund, and that is we have 150 linear feet of bottom whaler left to install on the original bulkhead that strengthens the bulkhead. I'll reduce that money from 30,000 down to 28,548 again to help reduce that balance the fund. And originally I had budgeted $12,000 to move the fence from the west property line where it abuts the new KOA campground to the north property line. I took that out. We're not quite sure when that's going to be done. We're hoping this year, but even if it is, we'll take the fence, and if we don't have the money to do it, we'll just store the fence until we do have the money to do it. So we were going to reuse the same fence. That was purely labor, that money I removed. Again, to balance the fund. Trolley has not changed. Of course, we did increase the fuel line from $7,000 to $12,500, and that, of course, goes right into a revised grant application to DRPT, so that really doesn't affect it's not affected by our revenues. And if you look at the summary, there's a summary for all departments and all funds. You will see that all funds are balanced with no deficit, no overage. And if anyone has any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Doesn't sound like it. You're well ahead of schedule.
There may be, some additional work on the budget depending on the outcome of this evening's meeting. So we will have to make another at least one more presentation to you, but we can combine that with some other items on our budget calendar to keep us on schedule.
Sounds good. No, I think it's all same now. Okay. Next on the review is to consider the pump and haul request for White Raven's Nest. Mr. Talbot.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And as you can see, the owners of White Raven's Nest are reapplying for a pump and haul permit. The permit will allow them to obtain a valid permit from the Virginia Health Department for disposal of sewage resulting from their operation on Max Boulevard. And a valid VDH permit is required by the Virginia Department of Agriculture in order for their business to legally operate. There's a written request in here that was provided. It is attached to the agenda, and also a letter from the property owner declaring that the operators of White Raven's Nest can act as his agent.
All right. For council members that weren't here, I'm going to allow the Landons to speak if they would like to. If not, we'll move on.
It's not to speak. I'm here with the Landons on their behalf.
Correct.
And I know there's been a lot of comments already, and I would just ask the board to consider their request and the fact I believe they should be grandfathered in, and their application was made under the prior ordinance, which is, I know it's being changed, later on in the hearing. And I think they're an asset to the community, and I would hope that the board would grant their request.
All right, thank you. All right, I'm going to turn it over to council. If council has any comments, now's time to discuss it.
Mr. Mayor, after last
Thursday.
March 10th meeting with Kathy Plant, when she was here, she was representative from Accomack County Health Department. It was one thing that she said that really stuck out in my mind, and that is that the people that have a current pump and haul permit now were never turned down by the health department. And in my opinion, it makes me feel like that the town violated its own ordinance by not going through the proper proper procedure of the ordinance. And that alone, that fact right there alone makes me feel like that White Raven's Nest is deserving of this pump and haul permit. And then, in my opinion, hopefully, we'll go through the ordinance, go through a new ordinance, and put some more teeth in it, and make sure that next time our T's are crossed and I's are dotted.
Is that it?
That's it for me.
All right. Anyone else?
In talking to Kathy today, the Virginia Health Department don't her, Accomack Health Department or Virginia Department of Health don't have any problems with it either. That's a big issue. You know what I'm saying? If they had a problem, there's a problem. But like you say, and they're the ones that but like you say, we can make an ordinance any kind of way. She said you can make an ordinance as strict as you want, as least as you want. That's up to council. But also, something that she said too, that when they built on to their establishment, that nothing from the town was sent down there to her that she could even raise any alarms, you know what I'm saying, about anything. It didn't get put through. But and she was, I'm gonna tell you, I hate putting her, she's not here to say it, but she says she hopes that we approve it. And that's coming from. I'm not sure that's her personal opinion, you know, but she also she's the person that says yeah, no down there. So it's not the health department that has any problems with it.
No, and she, clearly they don't. My issue is what this town has done in the past by not following the procedure of it, and that's somewhere we need to do a serious cleaning up of that stuff. And it blows my mind. I have to say it again. It blows my mind that people out there think that we just don't want to issue it just because we don't want to issue it. That is not the case. Or it wasn't the case for me anyway. For me, it all came down to rules, regulations, and what it says in the books.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll say it was very informative having Kathy here the other night. I attended the meeting. It was very informative. This is a real cluster because, and unfortunately, the townsman put on the pedestal here as the bad guy, and I really don't believe we are the bad guy. But when you look at this, so we have an ordinance that says if you cannot put in a system, then we grant you the pump and haul. Mm-hmm. Our ordinance was sent to the health department, and they approved that exact ordinance that we have. However, like Gene said, and he's 100% correct, the health department on the back end is telling people to come to us for the pump and haul. And they're not the first persons they've told that. I've already talked to 2 others that have gone down there since they've been down there, and they've told them the same thing. So we've got more coming, and the health department's telling them to come to us and get the pump and haul, even though the very ordinance that they approved from us says that the pump and haul can only be done if you can't get a septic system in. So we have to deal with that on the next agenda item. But I mean, as far as this one goes, I think it's a go in my book, just because it's such a cluster. There's no reason to keep the bureaucracy continuing at this point.
Anything further?
The only thing I'll say, and I stated at the ordinance committee meeting the other night, is that we do have a current ordinance on the book. It was an ordinance that was sent to the health department at their request, and it says that whereas the Curtis Merritt Harbor Refuge, herein referred to as the harbor, is not able to obtain a sewage disposal by septic system permit or by central sewage system approved by the Accomack County Health Department, it goes in and talks about that verbiage. Me personally, I don't feel that making another wrong makes us right in any respect, regardless of what was done in the past. This is a different council. However, the ordinance is still in the books. And by no means do I mean any hardship to these folks or any other folks that would come before us looking for a pump and haul permit, and totally support if a business has a system, that if they find that system to be malfunctioning or having to be replaced, that something be done in the meantime until it can be restored. But I have to disagree. There is an ordinance on the book. It clearly states wherein you would issue a pump and haul, and this does not qualify. And to speak of the health department and Kathy Plant, question was asked a couple times on Thursday night as far as what designation or differential is made between gray water and black water, and she said none, and that is their policy, not ours. And I feel like what's happening with this is that the health department is putting us in the position where we're having to make these decisions, and we don't have the expertise available to us that they have to make these decisions. And like Chris said, they're putting us on a pedestal where we're having to be the bad guy, which in my consideration is a cop-out on their part. But that's as far as where my head's at on this right now, that's where it's at.
Thank you, Bill. Anyone else? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve the pumping hall as presented, Mr. Mayor.
A second. Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Just one? One opposed. Congratulations, y'all. Can you be open tomorrow? I'm teasing. I know y'all got a lot of work ahead of you. But now you can do it. Have fun. Alrighty. Next on the agenda here is to consider a new pump and haul ordinance. Mr. Savage.
Okay, the ordinance committee met on, as was mentioned earlier, on March 10th, and the purpose of which is to dot the i's and cross the t's on this and give some formality to it as well. The proposed ordinance contains a set of policies, a new one that is going to be introduced tonight. Contains a set of policies that were not present in the previous ordinance, and with some contract execution involved in it. And I'd like to go ahead and just read it for an exercise of competency, I guess. An ordinance authorizing the pump and hauling of sewage from the blank property, whereas it is the intent of town council to provide relief to existing homes or businesses that have no option for sewage treatment as a result of the unavailability of an approved central sewage system, the inability to obtain approval for a septic system or repair of an existing system through the Accomack County Health Department. And whereas the blank located at blank hereinafter referred to as the blank property is not able to obtain sewage disposal by septic system by a central sewage system or by approval of repair of an existing system by the Accomack County Health Department. And whereas the town of Chincoteague, Inc., hereinafter referred to as the town, is authorized by its permanent pump and haul agreement and general permit issued by the State Health Commissioner to add individual facilities to that permit. And whereas the town is authorized by Section 15.2/1102 of the Code of Virginia to enact legislation it deems expedient to secure and promote the health, safety, and general welfare of the inhabitants of the town. And whereas the town council finds that the regulated pumping and hauling sewage from the blank property, where central sewage treatment is unavailable and sanitary septic system cannot lawfully be installed or existing system repaired, is conducive to the health, safety, and general welfare of the town. Now therefore, be it ordained and enacted by the town council that in response to the property owner or his agent's written request that describes the reason for the request and the proposed use of the building and or site, the town council hereby authorizes the addition of the blank property to its permanent pump and haul agreement and general permit, and that the owner agent has provided professionally engineered designs of the proposed sewage system to the Accomack County Health Department in a form that is suitable to meet the department's storage facility construction permit requirements. The sewage storage facility shall be designed in accordance with the requirements found in the current edition of sewage handling and disposal regulations of the VDH, and that the subject use on the blank property has existed and operated legally within the town limits for a minimum of 1 year prior to the submission of the application for a pump and haul permit. That the subject use on the blank property is not in the past year, nor does for the duration of this permit intend to add dwelling units, business space, mobile units, or an expansion of any kind, including a change of use resulting in a higher occupancy limit of the existing facility. that has in the past year or would in the future increase the amount of sewage generated, and that the owner agent of the property has remitted the appropriate one-time pump and haul application fee from the list of fees currently approved by the council, and that the council directs the town manager to execute such contract with the owner agent of the blank property, and that such contract shall describe the terms and conditions upon which such addition shall occur. No facility shall be added to the general permit until such contract is signed by the owner agent and delivered to the town manager in recordable form for his signature on behalf of the town council. No such contract shall be deemed concluded or impose any obligation upon the town unless and until the Accomack County Health Department has inspected and approved the system prior to operation. At a minimum, such contract shall provide that 1, that the term of the contract and placement on the general permit shall not exceed 2 years, but additional 2-year terms may be authorized by the town council under such terms and conditions as it may direct. 2, that the contract shall not be deemed concluded unless and until the Accomack County Health Department has inspected and approved the proposed system prior to operation. The owner agent also agrees to maintain the pump and haul facility in accordance with requirements of the current edition of the sewage handling and disposal regulations of VDH. That 3, that a written agreement exists between the town, the owner, and his or her agent, and a property license hauler. This contract must describe the maintenance schedule for the facility and state that all costs incurred in the pump and haul operation shall be paid by the owner agent. This contract must require the hauler to notify the town within 30 days if the owner does not fulfill the financial obligation of this agreement. 4, that the contract shall become invalid upon the change of ownership or agent of the subject property of business, discontinuation of the subject business, or change in its use as defined in the town's Chincoteague's zoning code. 5, that the owner agent must notify the town in writing immediately upon discovery of any material change in circumstances affecting the pump and haul operation, included but not limited to any information that he or she may receive that indicates or seems to indicate a violation of the general permit or any applicable VDH regulations. The owner agent shall also notify the town at least 60 days prior to any change of use or ownership or agent of the property. 6, that the owner agent and hauler must agree to fully identify, defend, and hold the town harmless against all costs and lawsuits, and to provide insurance and proof thereof in a minimum amount of $100,000 for the owner and $1 million for the hauler or its equivalent, as approved by the town attorney, naming the town as an additional insured. 7, that surety in the form of a bond in the amount of $5,000 shall be provided by the property owner for the performance of the contract and is necessary to remove or properly abandon the pump and haul system and or remediate the effects of any violation of Virginia Department of Health regulations. 8, that the owner agent grants permission for the town or its agents to enter into property for inspections as it deems necessary, or to remove or properly abandon the system upon the failure of the owner agent to do so. 9, that in the event of a public sewer system should become available for use with a proper element of its collection system located within 500 feet of the subject facility, the owner agent shall connect the facility to such line according to the requirements of the town's engineer within 90 days, thereby terminating the contract and the inclusion of the facility on the general permit. 10, that the contract may be terminated and facility removed from the general permit within 30 days notice at the direct discretion of the town council. This 30-day notice shall not be necessary in circumstances where violations of EDH regulations exist if the conditions of the contract between the town and the owner agent are not met, or if the town's general permit is revoked. 11, that all parties shall execute such contract which shall be notarized by notary public duly licensed by the Commonwealth of Virginia. The town manager is authorized to act on the town's behalf in concluding and executing such contract and verifying the approval of the Accomack County of Virginia Department of Health. Adopted, mayor, attest, town manager. That's all I have
You say that again?
Mr. Mayor.
What'd you say, Jay? I didn't get you.
Yeah.
So
Need
just
option time.
appreciate our town manager and his staff for assisting in this effort very much so. And it is turn it over to the disposition of the town council at this time.
Discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Mike,
Yes, ma'am.
our current ordinance right now that we have,
Yes.
does it say in the event the public sewer system should become available for use, that they have to hook up within 90 days?
It does not. That particular, in our current ordinance, and here it is, it's in the agenda. This is the ordinance that was, the exact ordinance that was passed in 2005 by the council there.
Mm-hmm.
It does not have that stipulation. However, other sample ordinances, other enacted ordinances, I should say, by other localities that I've read do contain that. This ordinance does say, in several places, though, that one of the conditions for approval, the existing ordinance that is, one of the conditions for approval is the lack of a central sewer system.
Mm-hmm.
It does not stipulate how available that sewer system can be, and I get that. The reason, where the 500 feet came from is when this ordinance was enacted in 2005. I believe it was a collaboration between the public works director at the time and the town's attorney at the time. It came up with a set of policies by which they, once the pump and haul permit was permitted or approved by the council, those policies governed how the contract would be written, because there has to be a contract between the pump and haul of the town and the owners or agents. That set of policies directed how you would proceed from that point, and that 500 feet was in our policies. What I did when preparing a sample ordinance for the ordinance committee was I incorporated a lot of the policies that had been followed in previous pump and hauls into the actual ordinance, so there would be no, that gives us a little bit more authority when when it's not just a office policy, but it is actually part of the ordinance, and it seemed appropriate. 500 feet is certainly a short distance when you start talking pumping sewage.
My next question is, or it's not a question, it's a statement. In our current ordinance, it says nothing about preference given to nonprofits or
correct.
religious organizations or anything like that. Is that something that we should be looking at for the new ordinance? Because it seems that everything we've given out outside of this one tonight has been either a government agency or a nonprofit.
That's within the my understanding of the current permit that we have. That statement would certainly be within the purview of the council as far as the health department is concerned. You can put what stipulations on that ordinance that you want to, as long as you don't violate their initial permit or their general permit, and their general permit does not mention that.
I think that's already been stated as such.
So certainly that can certainly be included, and I can do that in a matter of minutes if you want to.
It's not in here.
I know I was talking about it's been referenced already in some of our discussions tonight. So it wasn't.
We're gonna say it.
And we have that authority, I guess, to include that.
So, our current ordinance that we're under, that we just passed, all this is in the current, well, not in the current ordinance, but we have policies that mandate the bonding and all that now.
Correct.
But they're policies, they're not actually formulated in the ordinance.
Correct.
So, our current ordinance has everything here, plus the other stuff that's in here that's not in our current ordinances and our policies, right?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
So everything in our current ordinance, what's in here that's not in our current ordinance is all in our policies now.
Correct.
You melded the policy and the ordinance together.
That's correct.
Right, so the bonding and the identify, that's all in our policies right now.
It's in our policies right now. It is in the sample ordinance that was passed by the ordinance committee last week.
Right.
So,
Yeah, my problem with this is this exercise of futility that we seem to be caught in is that, you know, we can pass ordinances all day long, but the health department is still sending them back to us. And that, to me, it's an exercise in futility. I'm not sure how we get around that, if we want to get around that. But, you know, we can pass new ordinances all day long, but you can have somebody come in the next meeting that she's told to come right back to us for a pump and haul. So I don't know, you know, if we need to table this and get more legal opinion if we want to do that, or if we want to leave it like it is. I mean, we are covered, the town's covered, from the bonding standpoint already. But I'm hesitant myself to just throw another ordinance out there that we know we're going to be challenged on as soon as somebody goes down to Accomack and she sends them back up here for a pump and haul permit. You got any input on that, Mike, or any thought on that? I mean, we talked about it, but I didn't know.
Yeah, all I can say is that, you know, if the council denies someone, the health department basically has, from my reading and from my conversations with the health department, if the council denies someone for any reason that they deem appropriate, the health department has no recourse. The council denied it, they denied it. The general permit gives the council the authority to add entities to that general permit, and it pretty much leaves it up to the council as to the qualifications that they want to set out for the inclusion in that permit. So if you decide to say, hey, we're not going to approve anybody on Button Road for a pump and haul permit, I think that's within your purview, and I don't think the health department would have anything to say about it. Now, would it be challenged legally? I'm sure, unless you had some awful good reasons for not approving Button Road.
And see, these were all done, and she said this sitting here the other night, these were all done back in the day when we were denied, that people were getting denied septic solutions on the island. Now, she sat in that chair and said, nobody ever gets denied a septic solution on Chincoteague.
Prior to 2008, there was some severe, well, I shouldn't say severe, but prior to 2008, according to Kathy, there were some other regulations that regulated even the alternative systems, which have been around since 2000. But you had to have, if I'm not mistaken, Gene, you probably know, a minimum groundwater separation with these alternative
12
systems.
inches.
But
Always was 12 inches.
even that went away in 2008, so it became much easier. And Kathy basically told me, she said, you know, pretty much anybody can obtain one of these systems now. So there's not a lot of denial going on. If you can get a system. I mean, I'm sure they're not going to let you put it in the middle of the marsh, but other than that.
Unless the land is wetlands. But that's what kind of baffles me about the original ordinance. It was done in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
And those systems were available. And that's what I'm saying about the town thing. You know, those secondary treatment systems or mound systems, they were available definitely in 2004. Definitely, because I bought a ton in 2004. I'm not. You're saying 2000, but it's still before 2005. Right. So this original one where it says, whereas the Curtis Harbor of Refuge, herein referred as to the harbor, is not able to obtain a sewage disposal septic permit. They were in 2005. You understand what I'm saying there?
Yeah,
so we were skirting it ourselves. Again, it wasn't us. But I'm saying that even this ordinance isn't true because they were able to get an above ground secondary treatment system in 2005.
Well, but again, before 2008, there was a minimum groundwater separation, correct?
They had 12 inches there, I'm sure.
Which that went away after 2008.
But we've even put, does our new restroom have a separate pump and haul? The new one?
Yes.
So I'm saying we've done that when?
I'm not quite sure.
Huh?
It was before I came.
Just a few years. That's not a very old bathroom. That was
2018, 2019.
That's since I've been here, and like I said, never came to council about having it, but it just got put in. But again, we skirted it again ourselves. But even the 2005, which we weren't a part of, those systems were available then. So
right.
it was a matter of convenience.
But it was in 2005. Prior to 2008, it would have been easier to be denied even for an alternative system than it is nowadays.
Sure. I don't think you'll see a application for approval from town of Chincoteague to get a septic system. I would be shocked if you did, if it was there. I would be superly shocked if there was a denied septic for a secondary
I agree with you. I haven't seen
treatment
it.
system. I would be shocked.
I haven't seen. I don't think there was an application put in for it. I haven't seen it. If there was,
That's what I'm saying. So I mean, even the original one, and it's no difference in the, like Chris is saying, there's no different in the first and second because of secondary treatment systems being so available, including on-fill dirt, and like you say, unless it's concrete or if it's wetlands, it'll be approved. It totally says that there will be no more pumping halls. Period, because like I said, because these are approved unless you don't have that 70-foot separation from the channel or from water. Now that would be, but you're talking about such a small, but that would be the only ones that would be allowed to have that because they don't meet the setbacks from the channel or waters. But it would, but even this one here is saying that, but those systems were available when you told me it was written in 2005. It kind of shocked me because those systems were available then too. So I mean, they both say the same thing. And like you're saying, if we're saying that because you can get an above ground system that you can't have a pump and haul, that's everybody. Like I say, even the one you got, if you're saying you can't, the only way you can get one is that if you get turned down by the health department. If that's what we're saying, pump and haul is dead in the water.
So, for discussion on this, do you guys want to table it for tonight and get Mr. Talbert to do some more research, or nip it in the bud and do away with it?
I think our current ordinance to me lacks some meat.
Yeah.
You know, and White Ravens, you know, they fall in a little unique category here. They're leasing the land. You've got a landowner who is unwilling to install any kind of sewage for the renters. You know, I don't want to fall in that same situation again.
But you're 100% correct. This don't affect landowners because you're able to get the system. Where it does affect is renters.
Right.
We've even had sign ordinances here the same way. We had a young lady in here, every time she put up a sign for a little florist shop, had to take it down. She wouldn't even let her have a little teeny sign because the person that had the original had already had too much signage on the property and she wasn't allowed to have anything. Well, that's not, that's where the problem is. It's all about the renter, the person that's trying to start up a business and have a business. That is the whole thing in this nutshell. It's about that renter. I totally agree with you.
So, Mike, if we were to submit this for vote for approval, and we did add the terminology as far as religious entities and nonprofits, what would that language sound like, you think? Not trying to put you on the spot.
Like this.
I am.
Like this up here. The highlighted areas is what I would add.
Okay.
Do we have a copy of that? No.
Just did it a few minutes before meeting started.
Mr. Mayor, can I say something?
Sure, myself.
How all this started was because the town wanted to help people that could not get sewage to open their business and keep their business open. Back in 2005, when a lot of this happened, in the town, there was businesses that were going to have to close their doors because they didn't have the sewage. So Mr. Burbidge is the one that extended a Band-Aid to help these people by having the sewage go to his plant, and he took care of it. That's why the places in the middle of town are still operating, because of Sunset Bay. It was initially started to help those that could not get sewage. They didn't have the land or the property wouldn't perk. That's how it all started. And yeah, some of this stuff I've never seen it before. It's there, but I've never studied it before. And it's sad that people have to go through what they have. These people too, these people, you know? Same thing as myself. If I wanted to start a business and my piece of property wouldn't work, I couldn't open a business. So we need to get it right so it doesn't happen again to somebody else. You have to put them through it. Nobody needs to be put through it. But that's how it all started, was because people did not have the property to put sewage on, or it didn't perk to get that put on there, on their property. That's why this pumping hall came about. And most especially with our own, with the towns, Curtis Merritt Harbor, our in town, same thing, our library, all those. They couldn't put sewage on that property. So that's where the pumping hall come in, to help them. The same thing as you got right out here to this transfer station. They didn't have nowhere to put sewage. But then all those workers needed a bathroom to go to. So it's a pumping hall. If I'm out of line, I'm sorry. But anyway, that's how it all started. The town was trying to help.
We're glad you're here. Keep us apprised of the history and why, because none of us were here in 2005 except you.
Yeah, I was here. I was here in 2000, and I've seen a lot.
Yep.
But I know some of us weren't real happy when the sewage line went down through town, but we understand it now. Because without that, our restaurant, the shops, even our town dock at Reed Park, our library, our theater, fire company that was downtown, they wouldn't have sewage. So sewage is a big, big issue. And money-wise, we can't afford it. What can we afford? We spent thousands and thousands of the town's money to hire consultants that said, we will get you a permit. Wrong.
That was waste.
Waste of money. I think the last off, we cut him off. We weren't paying him anymore. That was it, because he certainly did not come through, and then he retired. So, there we go. I'm sorry for you all that you've had to go through this. Shouldn't have to. It's hard enough to have to get out there and work, let alone have to go through the hoops and the obstacles that you have to go through. I know, I'm an ordinary person. Huh?
I guess along Denise's line, if you put on there that it can't receive a permit, or if it's not feasible, then people that are renting would be saying, because in their case, it's not that it's not accessible, because it is, but it's not feasible. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You add that term, if it's not feasible, and that's where, as a renter, it's not feasible.
But then they got to put the money out
As
for
a
it.
landowner, if I own that property, it's feasible.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But as my renter, it wouldn't be feasible for them to do it. If I owned that property and I was doing the same business, it is more than feasible, and I can get it. But it's not feasible for them. So as back to the renters, that's where it comes in, where it's not feasible.
I don't know.
So if that was put into verbiage, then somebody else, like White Ravens, would be able to get the same be in the same situation.
And then you might come in a quandary too, because then everybody that's renting land, I want to get it right however we do it. It's because there's a lot to it. It's like I said, they fall in a very unique situation because the landowner is very capable of putting sewage on it, but it's not feasible for Berkey and Kim
That's
to pay for it.
Feasible.
Yeah.
Right, the majority of landowners are going to want to put it in now because it's cheaper to do it now than later.
Right.
Especially if we're talking central lines and so forth. We already know the cost on those are going to be pretty high.
Right.
You know, whatever you can get in now, you're better off to get in now
Yep.
before the change occurs.
Yep. I tell you one thing, I'd like to have something wrapped up before another one comes across our desk.
No, I agree.
Good luck.
You know, government don't work like that.
No.
I'll make a motion that we approve the ordinance or sample ordinance as read by Jay with the addition of, under the first paragraph, whereas that Mike had shown, so with the addition of to a recognized nonprofit organization or government entity, and then also under the second whereas paragraph, where it says Accomack County Health Department and is a recognized nonprofit or government entity. I'll make a motion to pass the sample ordinance.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion before we
Yeah,
vote on
would
it?
you be willing to put the word feasible by a renter in there? That's my renting the property.
Who would determine feasibility?
Mm-hmm.
See, that would
Us
be,
or them?
that would,
Well, again, see, but again, not,
see,
if
that
I
would
mean,
be
if I,
null and void because we've already said if you're not a nonprofit,
Yeah.
if we had, that would kind of cancel yourself out because you're already saying we're only going to do nonprofits and government entities right now. See what I'm saying? We've taken private, commercial out of the picture altogether. I understand what you're saying, but by adding this into it, you've taken that out of the picture altogether.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know if if folks remember, but during the ordinance committee, the original sample ordinance presented to the ordinance committee contained language that was along those lines that the ordinance committee removed for just that reason, because it was felt that the allowing language like that was really getting in the way of a relationship between an owner and a renter, which the town should be in the middle of that relationship. So that language was removed by the ordinance committee last Thursday.
Yeah, because I think Kathy's comments were you're opening up a can of worms.
Exactly.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as written with the stipulations. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank y'all. Moving on. Is to consider the resolution for dissolution?
Dissolution.
Dissolution. I'm disillusioned. I'm disillusioned.
Disillusion
I'm
is the proper
disillusioned.
word.
I like that. That's good.
Of the CRCCA. What are we doing? What in the world is that? I think that's just an additional thing.
Okay, all right.
If Mike's not pointing it out to me, I'm not gonna.
It was a fee structure.
That was a
That's all
fee
part.
structure to consider if you wanted to pass along with the ordinance. It was a suggested fee structure to allow pump and haul permits. It was a suggestion. It was totally at the ordinance committee did not address it, if I remember correctly, Mr. Chairman.
Right.
I do not think so.
Okay, so
Yeah, we didn't address that. It was basically the council's, at the council's discretion.
Yeah, I make a motion to move that to budget
Agreed.
personnel and add into our fee structure for
Second.
consideration.
Okay, got a motion and a second to move that to a budget personnel committee meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, be talking about that next month.
Pump and haul fees, move this over to.
Clear as mud. All right,
Clear as mud.
now moving on to the resolution of dissolution. Do you want to read it, Mike, or do you want me to?
I can do that.
Let Jay read it.
Leave him alone.
Pass me your water.
And if I'll read the memo if I could also, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
The Chincoteague Recreation Convention Center Authority was formed by an act of the Town Council at its December 1991 meeting for the purpose of overseeing the operations of the yet-to-be-constructed Chincoteague Center. The CRCCA has been performing this duty since. To complete the dissolution of the CRCCA, the Code of Virginia requires the authority to resolve and dissolve, and the controlling government entity to likewise resolve the dissolution. At its February 15th, 2022 meeting, the CRCCA voted unanimously to dissolve the authority. The accompanying council resolution has been reviewed by our attorney and found to be in compliance with the state code. As you can see, upon passage of this resolution, the CRCCA will officially dissolve on July 1st, 2022. Daily operations, finance, and long-term planning for the center will then be accomplished through the town office. The original ordinance creating the authority is included here for your review, along with the original 6 members of the authority. So the approved resolution by our, or the reviewed resolution by our attorney, resolution of dissolution of the Chincoteague Recreation and Convention Center Authority. Whereas the Chincoteague Recreation and Convention Center Authority was formed by ordinance of the Chincoteague Town Council on the second day of December 1991, pursuant to the provisions of the Public Recreation Facilities Authorities Act, Chapter 29, Title 15.1 of the Code of Virginia of 1950, and has operated under this authority since its formation. Whereas the CRCCA has substantially fulfilled the purpose for which it was formed by overseeing the design, construction, and operation of the Chincoteague Center for these many years, and that all obligations theretofore incurred by the authority have been fully paid or adequate provisions have been made for their payment. Whereas the town of Chincoteague, I'm reading the authority's resolution. I'm going to read the next one. Resolution of dissolution of the Chincoteague Recreation and Convention Center Authority. Whereas the Chincoteague Recreation and Convention Center Authority was formed by the ordinance of the Chincoteague Town Council on the second day of December 1991, pursuant to the provisions of the Public Recreation Facilities Authorities Act, Chapter 29, Title 15.1 of the Code of Virginia 1950, and has operated under the authority since its formation. And whereas the CRCCA has substantially fulfilled the purpose for which it was formed by overseeing the design, construction, and operation of the Chincoteague Center for these many years, and that all obligations theretofore incurred by the authority have been fully paid or adequate provisions have been made for their payment. And whereas the town of Chincoteague was at the time of its formation and still is today the only participating political subdivision in the formation of the CRCCA, and whereas the Chincoteague Recreation and Convention Center Authority, by a unanimous vote of its board on February 15, 2022, has resolved to dissolve the authority pursuant to Title 15.2, 5616 of the Code of Virginia, and return operation of the Chincoteague Civic Center along with all other related responsibilities to the town of Chincoteague, and that such dissolution shall be effective at 12:01 a.m. on July 1st, 2022. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Chincoteague Town Council, recognizing the facts stated in the CRCCA's aforementioned resolution to be true, by majority vote has dissolved the Chincoteague Recreation and Convention Center Authority as of 12:01 a.m. on July 1st, 2022, and that the title to all funds and properties owned by the authority at the time of such dissolution shall vest in the town, and that all operations and responsibilities related to the Chincoteague Civic Center shall become those of the town of Chincoteague at that date and time. Adopted this 7th day of March, it should be 17th day of March, 2022. Forgot my one.
Just as an amendment to that, the committee member that's responsible for the council is Brother McComb here. And what was their general feeling as they were?
Yeah, we learned a lot through COVID as far as the impact and everything to the center over there. And it certainly became very obvious when all our revenue sources besides what we received from the town in the way of taxes, that it certainly would behoove us to look at other ways to run the center without having it as a separate entity and having a separate payroll and all that type of thing. And, doing something like this with the town would certainly give you a lot of synergies as far as being able to use shared personnel, technology, all that type of stuff to properly man and operate the center.
Good enough. I'll entertain the motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All righty.
I have a question about it.
Go ahead, Denise.
I have a question now.
Okay.
So we take this over July 1st. What are our plans, or do we need to discuss it right now? What are we in April, May, June? Might as well say 3 months. To have somebody that is going to be able to talk to people that want to use it and things like that, because I don't think that our staff that we currently have can handle much more.
It's too much.
It's
You
too
gotta
much.
have somebody, some extra help.
And we had discussed hiring an additional staff member just for that purpose. And in addition to their duties as across the street, they'll also have some duties in the town office. So they'll be doing a bunch of different things. But yeah, we had discussed putting on personnel for that.
We're going to have somebody July 1st.
Yes, ma'am. I've already written the job description. We're working on a separate fund for the center, sort of like the Harbor has its own fund, Trolley has its own fund, and that was what I was referring to earlier in this meeting, that there'll be some more budget work should you have passed this resolution. So we'll have that ready for you, ready to go for you at the next meeting. We do plan on hiring a person that will have primary responsibility of operating and some responsibilities with the marketing people that we are going to involve, and also, since we don't see that as a 40-hour-a-week job, they will have some duties in the town office. Their office will be on this side of the street.
Good.
To assist, and they can assist with the multiple tasks that our staff has in the town office here as well.
I think
Thank
it'd be beneficial to have like a little strategic plan for us would be handy. I think what you're going, which direction you're going, we would actually form that up in a strategic plan would be helpful to myself and I think everybody.
I think the great thing about that too is there'll always be somebody to answer the phone for over there. So that's a big thing. So, as well as emails or whatever.
And Mr. Mayor, you know I gotta ask, even though I already know the question.
Basketball.
We're not having a basketball.
Basketball.
Can we change the duck system to be basketball and volleyball? Kids can play basketball and volleyball.
I don't know, they need a new.
We'll see if that's in the strategic plan, Gene.
Huh?
Let's see if that's in the strategic plan.
All right.
Well, you guys,
Well,
I want to dig it out and put a pool in
but
it.
we zeroed out the Amron Center for getting upgrades, so I mean, I was gonna try.
Just
I
moving
gotta
on.
try.
yeah, moving
Let's
on.
move it on.
All right, next on the agenda is to consider the award for the FY22 spring paving contract. We talked about that in Public Works Committee, just as rehashing it. Ridge Road is the majority of it. Division Street, which Denise will be glad about.
No chip and tar.
No chip and tar.
I'll never vote for that.
And then you have North Main Street. I wish we could widen it out, but we can't.
I'd say so,
And
because it is a nightmare.
in a bus, I can imagine.
A wide vehicle.
Mhm.
It's something, I've had people say they would give 5 foot of their land. But
Yeah.
right now, where we would have to put it is all power lines.
Right.
Can't put it on the other side, because that's wetlands.
Yep. Yeah, it's bad, especially in summertime with walkers and bikers. and
Oh,
whatnot.
yeah, and you got these kids with these electric scooters.
Oh, yeah.
We're gonna have some bodies to pick up off the pavements out here soon.
Yep.
I almost seen it a while ago. 3 of them.
But that's the contract, and what we need is council's approval to sign that contract with Branscombe.
I make a motion, we accept this.
Second.
Motion second. Denise, do you have the discussion?
No, I was
Okay.
making a motion.
We have a motion properly discussed. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank y'all. Next up, for your light reading. is the-
We're not gonna read this, are we?
No, Jay, you gonna read this?
Don't do it.
Mike's going, good life, here we go
Don't do
again.
it to me.
No, you all have the book that we get for the trolley system. And we do it every year, just have to approve it. So if
So
there's any,
moved.
Second.
motion is second to approve it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Good life. What a book. Anyhow,
Well, this is the same thing over and over every year.
oh yeah. It's amazing.
So we don't forget.
All right. I think the rest of it is us. All right, wait a minute. There's a consideration for the donation for the CHS After Prom Committee. Everybody knows with COVID, they haven't been able to raise any funds. So they're looking for a donation from us. That fund amount, I do not know.
2,000.
Is it 2,000?
I only had one question on the, like, Robbie, y'all doing anything for the police fund, or is this on top of what you all are doing?
This is probably gonna be on top of, we usually do donate to
To
the
the-
after prom.
Okay, so we're
Yes.
doing it on top. Okay.
They are way down.
Yeah, I agree.
They usually have somewhere around, I think Mary Esther told me somewhere around $21,000 to do after prom with, which includes, they get iPads for the kids, watches, all kinds of stuff.
Yes.
Keeps our kids off the street prom night, which is, you can't put a price tag on that. Food, yeah, and whatever.
To keep them occupied.
We gave them a pretty hefty donation across the street, and that brought them up, quite a bit. But they still need some more, and they're busy doing other things too. They're not just standing there with their hand out. They're doing things. But if we can find a couple grand, I would dearly love to give it to them.
I'll make a motion to approve the donation request for $2,000.
Second. Motion is second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We have
Somebody saw that. I went home without that.
You sleeping at the hotel?
Again. All right, announcements, Brother Jay.
Be at the hotel.
I think I'm good. I appreciate it.
All right, Brother Gene.
I think it's been a good night. We're able to work things out in a peaceful and calm way, and I'm thankful to do a little for that.
Brother Billy.
I'm good.
Vice Mayor.
I would, in following up on our newly passed ordinance, I would maybe like to see us have some communication with the Department of Health. This is what our ordinance says, so maybe they can get on board and not keep sending us people that are violating of the very ordinance for which they hold us to for holding our pump and haul permit, in a matter of words, on behalf of the town and the council or whatever.
If everybody's in agreement to it.
Yep. That's all I got.
All right, thank you. Denise.
I don't know what else can be said than what we've said tonight, except that spring training finally started and go Yankees.
Ms. Allen.
No, I'm good, thank you.
All righty. Well, folks, congratulations. Thanks for sticking it out. We work, but we work slow. So, all righty. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move.
Second.
Motion, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Go home.